What are the earliest memories of your parents?
The roses, I think, in the roses in in that apartment that we had downstairs, and being in those little roses and going to the Hilton and swimming at that swimming pool and listening to the lambada, and there was like buffet dinners, and we'd go there. That's what I remember. That's where I remember my mom and my dad. I think I remember him. I remember when I fell down the stairs, and then my dad came to pick me up because I was bleeding, and I think I remember that bit of a trauma memory, but that's the earliest I remember. My parents is in Cyprus, really. I don't have any earlier memories.
Can you recall a moment from your childhood when you saw your parents bond in a special way?
Okay, you're a harder interviewer than I am.
Hmm.
Um, I think I've seen my mom have a really hard time losing a lot of people in her life, and uh, and I think watching my dad know her, like he understands her in a way that I think not many people do. And uh, and yeah, I would say that that's probably where you can understand that their bond is something that, like it's a very it's a very unique thing that they have with each other that nobody else can sort of penetrate. So yeah, I think it's in hard
How
times that you
about
see that.
before that, when you and your mother and your sisters would send your father off to war zones? It's very tough for the both of them. How were those interactions during those goodbyes?
Honestly, I remember saying bye to my dad a few times. When he was going off to Liberia. Uh, I can kind of remember when we were leaving Iraq, but to me it was like a game. I don't remember that. I remember that there was a lot of noise. I remember the saying bye to my dad, and there's like a door with a circle in it, and we're saying bye, and I don't remember thinking this is serious, this is a war, but obviously it was a Gulf War. So um I kind of feel like because I was so young, you don't experience the depth of that emotion. I'm sure my sisters did. But I remember saying bye to my dad when he was going off to Liberia and knowing what it's like to get letters, the actual letters. And I have one um, in my head. We have like there's a notebook. It had like pictures painted inside it, and my mom would give all of us this notebook, and we all had to write letters, and literally we would send letters and get letters back from my dad. I don't know how they did that with a UN post or whatever. And the emotion you feel, like saying bye to him for 1 year for a child, it's a long time not to see somebody and not to have him. So I think, yeah, I think I forgot the question now, but I think that's kind of where we were.
The moments, recalling the moments from your childhood when you saw those special bonds. I think you've given two very good examples there of deaths in the family
Yeah.
or long, long, hard goodbyes for all of you involved. Okay. Okay. Right. I'm going to ask a two-part question now. So, can you tell us about the woman that you've become today? But more importantly, what values did your parents emphasize in your upbringing and how they've shaped you to be the woman you are today? So, let's start with point one. Tell us about who is Lorena.
Gonna sound like Julie, but that's deep. That's a deep question. Um, whew. I am the youngest daughter of my parents, Hector and Marcella, and am, I think I am very much a product of both my parents. Would say that a lot of my character is perhaps based around my mom and a lot of the values that she instilled. I think my mom had a lot of strength um, in her, and I think it was something I admired a lot, and in many ways wanted to emulate. If that makes sense. And I think hearing her tell me so many different stories, and you kind of see as a child like her character formation, and you're like, Oh, okay. So that's how life can mold you. And I think a lot of that kind of seeped into me, and I've always tried to have some level of strength and not even close to the way she is. Like you just can't do that. I think from my dad's side, his openness, his open-mindedness, he's always traveled. He's very persevering. My father is incredibly, he perseveres. He goes ahead and he doesn't waver. And that is not something I have, but it's something I would love to have. And I think my dad's always had that. He's very good at like going for his goals, and he's very goal driven. And I think that that is something he tried to like teach us quite a lot of. And um, the moments that I do have that drive, I think that kind of comes from my dad. Just going back to your question, and perhaps his desire to travel, to always be here and there, and maybe from both of them, that desire to always be moving around and to be like able to live in different countries and sort of have that openness to different cultures. I think that definitely comes from my parents. I think growing up with growing up with like we're going to dinner parties and it's a Nigerian family or a Ghanaian family or a Somalian family was like my mom's best friend was at a time was Hawa or Aster. She was Ethiopian, and you see all these cultures and you're like, I I want that, like I want that. I want to always have that environment of like internationalism. So you just, I think, yeah. So, what was the question again? So yeah, I think you become like a little bit of both your parents, and I think for my mom, it's probably my character strength. For my dad, my ability to look at the world and say like I can live here, I can live there, and I think that comes from, and I can connect with people, and I think that comes from him.
It's a very good mix from both of them. Okay, right. So, when you think of their impressive 50-year marriage, you've been part of it now for 38 years.
No need to tell anyone.
What is the most memorable moment or moments that either you have shared with your parents or you've been aware of what they have achieved together?
When they have um, acquired property. And I think the first time I saw them do something like that in front of me was in Colombia. They went and bought their first house after being retired. Yeah. So they already had their other house and their flat and the other flat in Cyprus. But I think watching them choose something, look for something, the pressures of that and most people retire, they're in their 60s and all they want to do is relax. And then you have these people and they're like in a new country and well, in their own country, but coming back 40 years later and looking and discussing and evaluating and watching them act like newlyweds. I think that was really sweet to see them. It's not easy. My dad's not a millionaire, so to watch them go there, we didn't see each other for 3 years. Um, so they would, be able to have that financial mindset to be like, this is our goal. We're gonna use some of our retirement money and use it for a beautiful home. It's a beautiful home. And helping them look and choose. And I think watching them do that and then watching the sacrifice that they did so that like by the time that place was built, they paid it off. And that's something, you know, I think talking about like in their marriage, what do I admire about them? I think it's their financial muscle, and that comes from both of them. And I know my mom hasn't been working because she gave up her career for us, but my mother has a lot of that in her mind. She's always been very good at like a business mind, you know what I mean? So I think memorable them buying their home like there, like with us, like sort of like in front. I think that was something that I would think is admirable to see them do something like that so further in their age. Uh, and then and then and then come on, you were there in Spain, seeing them do that again. in Spain, and it was I mean, what do you remember of my parents buying in
I
Spain?
think it was stressful. I think there were
Stressful.
so many options. There were so many things to
Oh
think
no.
about. But I
Yeah.
think the way that they handled it together, there was open discussion. What should we do? Where should we go? What do we want?
Tom is
And I
very
think,
polite. It wasn't an open discussion. My mom didn't like any of the places.
but
She
that's
kept
fine.
leaving.
But
She
neither
kept
neither did
running
I.
away
I was
with
I
you.
was with your mother on the lot. We were together. No, not this one. No.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was hard. I remember when they signed off on that first deposit in Spain. I think I broke into tears. Do you remember?
Yeah.
I just lost it. I was like, yeah, because it was sleepless nights and literally we had 5 days to make a life decision and to watch them do that, it's a big deal. Like we just got married and I think we try to think of like making a country move and it's a big deal. And can you imagine doing all of these sort of transactions? I think that's probably one thing that I admire uh, of them. Does that answer the memorable
That
question?
answers the memorable question, I think. Yeah. Being there and live in the moment now. You answered a question previously about what qualities of your parents that you admire that have helped shape you. I'm going to ask you a little bit of a different question here, and I want you to think about your parents individually. And I want you to tell me or tell us all what you think are the qualities that have helped their marriage in each other. So, what are the qualities of your mother that's kept your father so successful, so strong? And what's the qualities of your father that's also kept your mother so successful, so driven, so strong?
My father is very patient. Um, my father is very patient, and I think that is one of the strongest things about him, and that's why I think God puts two people together, right? You have to have that interlock of two people, and I just spat on myself. That's gross. And and uh I think that aspect of my dad's character, the fact that he is so understanding um of my mom is why he was kind of the perfect husband for her. Um, I think he's always been very supportive uh, of my mom. I think he's been very understanding of her, if that makes sense. And I think that's been why she's had that cushion to like rely on my dad. You know, it's hard. They both are like, I guess, like us, you leave everything behind. You have no family. It's you and him, you and her in the craziest countries. I mean, we see that. And and I think and I think she needed somebody that that had that protector notion of my dad is definitely that he's a very strong sort of, I'll take care of you and I will be that pillow. And I think she needed that to be able to be so far away and adapt to all these countries and, you know, yeah, just adapt and thrive. And so that I think answers the question about my dad.
Correct.
My mother, my mom, I'm going to say as well, if we are saying patience, because my mom can be a little difficult sometimes. My mother, I would say it's probably her patience as well, because whilst my dad is so adorable and a sweetheart and whatever, you need a huge sense of um, responsibility, I think, and commitment to say you're going to give up a big portion of your life, and she did, to follow this man and really sort of put up with the life that means, you know difficulty means raising your kids on your own, means not knowing if your husband's coming back, literally not knowing if he's coming back alive at times. Like I can't imagine what that felt like. And I don't think if she had the sense of responsibility, perhaps, and that probably comes from her faith in God. This is my marriage. I'm going to do this. I think if she didn't have that patience with the life that my dad required, I don't think that he would have been able to achieve as much as he did. A lot of the families in the UN, they couldn't make it. And it's because their marriages didn't have that dynamic that it's patience. That's what keeps you together. And I think that's what I would admire in the two of them. Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
So I'm just waiting for Lorena to learn patience because she's got a very short fuse. So,
Can't be perfect.
after all these years married,
Yeah.
how have your parents changed over these years as you remember them when you were younger
Mm.
to now? How have they changed?
Without sounding too cliche, I think I think you can see the wisdom in them. I think I've for me, I've always been very close to my mom and she's always been very wise. There's not a problem in my life I can't talk to her about. She understands things further than I do, always. And even if it's from a different generational perspective or what have you, a different experimental vision, she has a lot of wisdom. And I think that comes from suffering and experiencing life and living. And I have to say that I think that if we go one by one with my mother, I have seen her, you know, in my memory. I know she's been around in my life since she was about 32, I think she had me. And I have seen her in my mind probably more from when she was 50 till now that she's 70, right? So my 18 till 38. And I've seen a woman that is I think she's gotten a lot more wise and there's a lot more about her that's centered at times. And I think I've gotten to see her just if she was always very smart and very wise. And I just kind of feel like as she's gotten older, she's just gotten wiser. I do rely on her know-how a lot more now than I would before, actually. So I think that is one thing that I've seen change. Sort of you say this about kids, like, oh, they're learning, they go from their alphabet to learning how to, get university degrees. But as children, I think we can also see that they develop even more, like they blossom as well in front of you in a strange way. My father, I think my dad, um, when we were younger, I think he was always very fun and funny and whatever, but he was always highly stressed. And I think I've seen him go through his retirement years. I've seen him calm down a bit more. I've seen him relax a little bit more. But I've also seen another side of him, which was you cannot remember your own parents raising you, right? Because you're too little at the beginning. And I think watching my dad become a granddad, that is probably the cutest thing in the world. He's he's adorable. He's adorable. He's a wonderful granddad, and he's very loving. He's very. I'm sure he was always a loving man, but he's very loving. Like he knows how to be with children, and I think that's. Uh, it's been really nice to watch him like get into his older. He looks 12 and whatever, but into his older age and just show that like that care that his nurturing self,
Hmm,
and it makes you think like, oh, was he taking care of me like that.
I'm
that
sure. I'm
and
sure.
yeah, that and watching him take Pepe has been really nice. Oh,
Have to
yeah,
get Pepe in.
you
In
do.
what ways have your parents shaped your views on family and raising children if you choose to do so?
Oh God, it's intense. Why do you ask me double questions? Ask me one by one, because
Okay.
I okay.
In what ways have your parents shaped your views on family life?
Oh well. I mean, uh, in terms of family life, I think we had really nice memories as a family. You know, I don't know, barbecues and Platania, and Tom doesn't believe there's snow in Trudeau's, but
No.
ski trips. My dad would take us skiing, and we'd sit on these the swimming thing,
The
the
little plastic
the
board.
plastic board, and he'd put a plastic bag on it from the beach, and he'd make us do like toboggans and go down the snow and make snowmen and whatever in the snow that Tom doesn't believe we have. I think in terms of family life, I think my dad, my mom, they were so good at creating a nurturing family, and that idea like that this was our family, and we had like and we didn't have other family, like sometimes I hear people, you would have memories as well, like you have your family and you remember like your auntie coming and your uncle coming and all your cousins and your grandma, your grand, we didn't have that. And yet I still feel like it was enough that I had my sisters, and we had so many animals, and we had a really strong sense. My parents did an amazing job at creating a nucleus of a family, I think that makes sense, and building that and making sure that we felt like we were a part of a family. So how has that shaped my family values? I think I've learned from both of them that you do get married, and that is your nucleus. That's something you build. And yes, obviously. Um, what's your second question? Because I forget, so I don't answer it.
And how have your parents shaped your views on children,
Oh no,
raising children, if you choose to do so? What values would you bring?
feel like that's a trick question. But yes, going back to the family one, just to say that I think the fact that they did bring the church and God as an element of why we were a nuclear family, I think that was quite important. Uh, ask me the question again for the last time. Sorry.
In what ways have your parents shaped your views on raising children? How would you raise a child based on what you've learned from your parents' marriage, from your upbringing? What values would you want to distill in that child?
That if they piss me off, I'm going to give them a chancletazo for sure. Um, actually, yes, let's start from there. Physical violence. My parents actually barely ever hit me. To be fair, my mom chased me around with a chancleta. She never caught up. I hid under the bed. She didn't really hit me. My dad slapped me once when I was 14, and he oh my God, he hit my knees when I was 21 because I was being rude. Literally, like they didn't. It wasn't that. It was the sense that honestly, it was the sense that I think if I decided to raise kids, I I think what I would draw from that is that at the end of the day, the fact that I know that they had that level of authority, it wasn't just that it came from an authoritarian perspective, okay? It was more that I understood that there was a level of respect. And whilst when you're the kid, you don't like that, right? You're like, I'm the boss. Um, I think it's quite important because then if there's that level of respect, then you don't want to make a mistake. You don't want to embarrass them. You don't want to be too rude, or you don't want to do something too crazy. And so I think at the end of the day, you respect their opinion, and that makes you want to stay on track. That makes sense. And if I had children, yeah, sure, I want to be your friend, and I want to know who your girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever AI friend is. But I want you to also know that I am your mother, and I gave birth to you, and I expect you to respect me and respect your father and not be rude. And I think that they raised us with very good morals in terms of ethics. And for me, I think that's something I would definitely like. None of this like snowflake stuff that people are like, oh my God, you can't be disciplinary with your child. I think it's important. I think it builds a lot of barriers. And I think those barriers are important. And to this day, I can be very rude and whatever. I can lose my temper, but I have a clear understanding of uh, gratitude and understanding of what these two people have done for me and sort of the importance they have. And that. yeah, the pedestal perhaps that they have in life. And I like that I can see my parents like that. And I would want my children to ideally look at me and be like, this lady's my queen. Yeah.
Okay. Let me ask you one final question, and
Oh,
I'm going to be testing you.
how are we
I'm
doing?
going to be testing you on if you've been listening to the lessons that your parents have been giving you. What do you hope for in your own marriage in terms of what you've learned from your parents?
I would love to get to 50 years. Uh, I think that would mean us having very good health.
Yeah.
That would mean Tom drinking less.
No.
Um, what would I want?
Hmm. What do you hope for your own marriage in terms of what you've learned from your parents?
I would like my husband to be as patient as my father. No, I think I would. I mean, honestly, if we got to emulate any aspect of their 50 years, I think it's the fact that we would learn to really look at each other as a unit. I think they have that unison that is something you can sense. They can argue, they can have their little bickering. I'm sure they annoy each other to hell, but I think they have a sense of unity, and I think that's really beautiful. And I think the biggest glory, let's say, like at the end of the day, is that they've built a they've built a family, and I think we all had our liberty to go choose whatever path we wanted to do, and I think any mistakes we would have ever done would have never been because, at home something was wrong, or they didn't teach me morality, or they didn't teach me what's right or what's wrong, or I don't know, my dad was never abusive to my mother. My mom was, okay, she might have thrown something at him, but she was never aggressive. They never really fought in front of us. We didn't have a hard life, and to raise children in an environment in that sense that is protected, I think, and that they're consistently teaching you respect, and it burns your ears and you find it annoying, but then you see what they're going after, and they're trying to create an actual legacy. They've raised three daughters, and I really can't say how they could have done anything better. Honestly, I can't. If we did have a child, I think if we did anything close to that, that'd be impressive. Not three, but maybe three cats. Yeah, there you go. That's my answer.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. And I guess, what do you want to say as a final message?
That's a final message. One, thank you very much for interviewing me and for signing up to do this. Two, thank you to my sisters who took part as well, and that was really nice. Um, I think it would just be to say that 50 years is half a century. That's a really long time, and it's a gift that we've all managed to be in each other's lives for all of these years. I think family is like a journey. It's like a roller coaster. It's an up and a down. But I think at the end of the day, we all know that, you know, if anybody, tries to hurt any of our family members, would come for them. I would. And I think we all have that sense of connection, at the end of the day. And I'm just very grateful that I have that. I think a lot of people don't get to experience a sense of family. And I think that's a big gift. And I think it's something we don't even recognize. We both come from uh, whole families, and not a lot of people have that. So, um, yes. So, nada, Dios los bendiga, mami, papi. Felicidades, feliz aniversario de, go get the cat. De parte
Bye.
de mí y de Tom y go get the cat. Y Mia, come here. Y Mia también. Mia, come here. Mia's also va a decir sus felicitaciones. Ahí viene. Come on, pick her up, honey. Okay. Y, ¿Y qué? Em, y nada, los queremos muchísimo y gracias por todo lo que nos han dado y todos sus sacrificios. Mia, say, feliz aniversario de oro. We love you. Besitos. Oh my God, she's very aggressive. Yes. Sí.
¿Es
Okay,
todo?
eso es
¿No
todo,
más?
no
¿No
más.
más?
Que le miren la cola. Bueno,
Still my chair?
yes, do you want to say your wishes?
See, so I think for me, congratulations. 50 years, as Lorena said, half a century. It's an incredible amount of time. And I think to see you both so happy with all the challenges, the strife that you've gone through to raise three intelligent, strong-willed, driven women, it's just fantastic to see. And it's been fantastic to be welcomed into your family, such a close nucleus family that everybody treats everybody so well. It's just been a fantastic experience so far, and long may that continue for another 50 years with you both at the helm of the family. So thank you so much. Obviously, te queremos mucho, and look, we look forward to celebrating with you and all the family very soon. I hope.
Yes.
So congratulations and lots of love and lots more love to come.
Yes, lots of love. Los queremos mucho. Dios los bendiga. Besitos.
Ciao.
Ciao, ciao. Happy anniversary. Ciao.